Maurice Nicol's Psychological Commentary, Volume 5, Amwell, May 9th, 1953. The opening of the inner division of a center. Unless the inner division of a center is opened, a person is governed by the external division. This is the same as saying that unless the suprasensual mind is opened, a person is governed by the sensual mind. Further, if you are a thinker and reason from the evidence of the senses only, and believe that sensual reality is the whole reality, the middle division will reinforce the sensual mind and you will conform to the conclusions about man and the universe that cannot admit either that human life on Earth or the stupendous galaxies of the sun extended through space have any meaning at all. This negative reasoning will have the effect of closing the inner divisions of centers, as the inner divisions are the highest and most important divisions of the lower centers in man, and when open, make the man as distinguished from an animal. Negative reasoning and the forming negative conclusions are methods of self-destruction. With those who have magnetic center self-destruction, this kind is not likely, but there is always the danger of imagination proving equally destructive by leading them astray sometimes into incredibly foolish beliefs. Foolish beliefs do not open the door leading into the inner divisions of centers. Foolish beliefs, just as much as disbelief, keep the door shut. My impression is that people long steeped in imaginary beliefs cannot begin any real work on themselves, but wander from one system of imagination into another. In this work, we are sternly told to struggle against imagination and its illusions. Here I will add in parentheses that you must often observe whether you are only working in imagination and not on imagination. Now, in considering what is necessary to open the inner divisions, it is evident that a sensualist, believing fundamentally in his depths that only what the senses reveal is real, will have the disease of disbelief standing in the way of his further development into a man. This seems as difficult to cure as foolish imaginary belief. We are not told how Christ cured the blind man whom he led out of the city of Bethsaida. We know only that Bethsaida represents disbelief, as stated in Matthew 21, verse 21. Woe unto thee, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. The account of the cure is as follows. And he cometh to Bethsaida, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and led him out of the town. And when he had spit in his eyes, and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and said, I see men in trees walking. After that he put his hands again upon his eyes and made him look up. And he was restored and saw every man clearly. That's from Mark 8, verse 22 through 25. The blind man represents the man suffering from disease of spiritual blindness. This is the illness of the sensual man. The first step in his cure is to lead him out of his disbelief. But we're not told how Christ did this. It is simply said that he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. Once he had been led out of the disbelief of his sensual mind, his eyes were given something coming directly from Christ. In the language of the parable, the eyes represent the understanding. To lift the eyes is to lift the level of understanding. This had to be done twice before he saw spiritual, that is, non-sensual truth clearly. When he, Christ, had spit on his eyes and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and he said, I see men as trees walking. He gains partial sight. Notice that a tree draws its life from the sun above it as well as from the earth below it. After that, he put his hands upon his eyes, again upon his eyes, and made him look up. And he was restored and saw every man clearly. Now he sees not men as trees, but men. Now the truth of sensual man is derived from what is below him, from the evidence of the senses, not from ideas. His thinking is from things and is therefore passive, determined by appearances and so in opposites. But to think spiritually is to think, not passively from the evidence of the senses, but from the ideas that must be understood with effort, and therefore it is active. Spiritual truths are therefore symbolized by men, not women. The awakening of male thinking, which the work can bring about if you think from the spermatic ideas it teaches, such as that man can reach a higher level of consciousness, means that you have begun to gain access to the inner divisions of centers, which are turned to higher centers where no opposites exist. Now, if you fundamentally disbelieve this work and the ideas in the Gospels, but do not observe, you will be indignant with those who seem to disbelieve it. This is simply due to seeing what is really in you as if it were outside you in others. This is a common enough occurrence. It is necessary, therefore, to bring your own disbelief into your consciousness so that you can face it yourself. It is better to do this because otherwise you will not be able to see the truth of anything that the work teaches for yourself, because you will be denying it inwardly all the time. But if you face your disbelief sincerely, you will be helped, if there is any willingness to believe. This brings us to another thing that is needed in order to open the inner divisions, namely the inner acknowledgement of what is wrong with you from the work point of view. The work speaks of several things that it is necessary to avoid, and of three main things that it is necessary to do. The object is to attain a definite goal which cannot otherwise be attained. If you neither attempt to avoid what the work indicates nor do what it tells you to do, you naturally miss this goal. Does this strike you as astonishing? Now, it is evident to anyone who has reflected on the Gospels that Christ gave directions about something quite definite. Most of the people who listened to him had only outer or sensual thinking and so could not understand his meaning. They are well-drawn types of grim, sensual thinkers belonging just as much, if not more, to the present time as to the past. In speaking of the internal mind and how to open it so as to enter the kingdom of heaven, Christ repeatedly explained that a man externally good and pious, but internally quiet otherwise, cannot possibly experience this stage of development. He misses the mark. It is the state of his internal and invisible life that matters. What does he really think and feel? Now, a man in the work has come to the realization for himself how and when he is missing the mark, as clearly and practically as a motorist who discovers he is going in the wrong direction. For example, to let in without resistance and to add fuel and to enjoy one's negative emotions is to miss the mark that the work has in view. It is to sin against the work because the work teaches that negative emotions prevent awakening. Otherwise, it would not be a sin. It is only a sin in relation to what the goal or mark is. Sin in the Greek means to miss the mark. Now, if a man cannot or will not interiorly acknowledge how or when he sins against what the work tells him not to do or to do, he does not value it. He does not take it seriously. It carries no weight with him. But if he refrains, or if he tries to do for the sake of the work, from a feeling for the work, from a genuine, private, secret desire to seek and obey the work without showing off, then he will find the door to the inner divisions begin to open and new meanings begin to enter. These new meanings gradually control and set in order the sensual or external man. The internal division is then in conjunction with the external division. The inner man contacts the outer man.